Good morning and welcome to Coffee with Tom and Joanne. I'm Tom Matthews.
And I'm Joanne Taranto. Thanks for joining us today. We have a great topic to talk about, and we wanted to bring to you a conversation about selling real estate and what it's like selling real estate in the second half of 2022. So we're later on in the year now. And earlier this year, if you have been following our coffees, we talked a lot about a market that was very heavily weighted in the seller's favor. And now we want to talk about some of the transitions that have happened as the year has progressed. And we think it's an important time for people who are considering selling over the winter months or considering selling in the spring to kind of follow what the changes have been. So Tom, what's the most notable change that we've seen over the last couple of months?
I would say the biggest change is the decrease of velocity. So not as many buyers in the market, which translates into less offers. So we're seeing less action over asking price and starting to see the market trend towards properties selling for their asking price or potentially a little bit below that. And, people ask what is causing that. One thing that's causing that is the cost of capital. So interest rates. When the year started, interest rates were between 2.5 and 3.5%. And I was talking to one of our lender friends recently. He said, we think the highest the rates would go in 2022 would be 4%. And now we're hovering at 7%. So that cost of capital increasing so much in a short time frame is impacting the velocity. It's just knocked a lot of buyers out of the buying equation right now. What else, Joanne, do you think is affecting the transition for the sellers?
Yeah, I think that inventory has remained low. And even though the velocity of the buyer pool has slowed substantially, what we're still seeing is a market that does not have a lot of inventory. So in that regard, it's a great time for sellers to sell, and prices are holding at this point. Now, what we feel, is going forward into the spring market, there are a number of outcomes and nobody has a crystal ball, but right now we are very insulated and we have a very strong market ahead of us. And some of the things that we think have changed besides velocity and the interest rates is we're seeing a lot of emphasis on condition. And the reason that condition is so important right now is kind of twofold. One is that, you have dual income families, people who have very demanding jobs and no skill set to do any work on their own. So they need to be hiring. And the cost of labor right now is much more expensive. The cost of materials is expensive. And we've had these supply chain disruptions. So the confluence of all of these things have made home improvement projects just a bit more challenging than they have been in the past, where contractors are short-staffed, there's a lot of demand for their work, the materials are not coming in on time. So as long as people's expectations are in the right place, we're not discouraging people from improving their houses, because that's generally always a good idea. But it has impacted the way that buyers are looking at real estate, because homes that need work are going to take a little bit more effort because of the things that are going on in the construction world. And the cost of the money is a little bit more. So people are generally using cash to do these types of improvements. And buyers are looking for homes that are turnkey right now. It's really a big change that we've seen, is that people want, move-in ready homes.
Yeah. And I think that's a great point. And I think the last point that really is important for sellers right now is that over the time of selling, going back 6 to 10 months seems like a short time frame. So for many sellers, they're sitting contemplating selling, and they remember their neighbors and their friends telling them stories of getting 30 offers, selling for hundreds of thousands of dollars over the asking price. And that's probably going to be the hardest transition for sellers right now, is that market just doesn't exist. And I think that's probably the biggest transition. that sellers really need to embrace, because that was something that we just have never experienced before in our 18 years working together. And I don't know if it might take 18 years before we experience that again. And for sellers, if you want to sell, whether it's in the fall of 2022 or into the spring of 2023, I'll say what Jackie Leavenworth said to us back in like 2010. I believe it's going to be, the house is going to have to be in parade ready shape, and it's going to be a bit of a pricing war. You're going to have to be priced right and in great condition, is what we are starting to see the trend developing.
Exactly. So moving forward into the months ahead, if you're considering selling, we'd love to have an opportunity to come over and help make kind of a honey-do list, or things that you would need to pay attention to so that you are in parade ready condition when the time comes. So I appreciate you joining us for another conversation of Coffee with Tom and Joanne. I'm Joanne Taranto.
And I'm Tom Matthews. Cheers.
Cheers.